wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, hunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read. That the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
I cannot pledge allegiance to a country built on lies, or raise my children to believe they're equal in its eyes. My leaders are assassinated for speaking their mind. So justice never tilts my way. I thought that she was blind. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
Good day. I am Denise DePina-Reed, co-host of At the Round Table with MAMLEO, a Massachusetts Association Minority Law Enforcement Officers Incorporated broadcast. And we greatly appreciate our sponsors, John B. Cruz Construction Company, 1 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Massachusetts, third-generation family-owned.
Is be true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a good morning, regardless of what has happened this past week with the election. It's still a good morning. Welcome to At the Round Table with MAMLEO, sponsored by The Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, good branch manager Cora Holbrook will call it. Area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Again, that's The Money Store for all your financial needs. And particularly now, folks, that the mortgage rates are declining, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It is due to the economy that has been rolling. So like I said, if you're looking to buy, the rates are declining, heading in the right direction now. So if you get your finances in order, give them a call. Give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call. Want to say a hearty good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales. Good morning, Brother Jamal. Good morning, Brother Cliff. Good morning, Brother Ditka. Good morning to our sister, Denise DePina-Reed. Hope she's listening, tuned in this morning as well. And good morning, Pastor Hobbs. How are you, sir?
By the grace of God, I'm well. Thank you for asking.
And good morning, Dr. Bradley. How are you, sir?
I'm sad. I'm sorry. I'm very sad.
Yeah.
But I'm doing well because this is a day that God has given us.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to do well.
Well, this is going to be therapeutic this morning. We're going to, like I said, hopefully this is a wake up call for folks. And Brother Rhodes is with us as well. He brought a bag. I was a little worried. I said, Mr. Friend, you getting worried that ice been in your house this morning or something?
No, not yet.
He said, no, not yet. Your it's going to be like Nazi Germany. Your papers, please.
Exactly. And then, of course, because he started the birther movement, he's going to be like, that's a fake birth certificate.
Right, exactly. It's already, it's crazy. But like I said, before we get any further, Pastor Hobbs, if you wouldn't mind, sir, God knows we need prayer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Father God, we bless you and honor you. We give you praise for this day that you've made, and we do choose to rejoice and be glad in it. We're confident that you are sovereign, and we ask you just to bless this broadcast. Bless us each as we're in this moment of space and time, that we would draw closer to you, who truly is our source. And we'll be careful to give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And without further ado, we are going
Can I take a little bit out of me? Take a little bit down. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Brother Bridgeford. How are you down there in Indiana? Well, folks, if you don't know, and I'm sure there's no one that doesn't know that there was an election this past Tuesday. Donald Trump was reelected to be the president again of these United States of America. It's hard to believe, hard to digest for those of us who are law-abiding citizens that a convicted felon.
Well, you know, the first thing I thought about when I realized that he was going to win this, and that was early in the election, that the awesome work that Pastor Hobbs is doing around voting and being involved in the society while you're incarcerated has a greater emphasis now, because I believe that every employer, every governmental entity that has, if you were asked the question if you were committed.
It's background noise.
Yeah, asked the question if you were convicted of a crime. That should be removed off the application.
Amen.
Right. No.
Exactly. If you can be president and be a felon, no job you should not be disqualified for any job now because you're a convicted felon.
617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You know, I was talking to Pastor Hobbs about that before we went on the air, and I said, you know, if you were a convicted felon, you couldn't even work in certain jobs in the federal government.
You couldn't work in finances.
You couldn't be a police officer. You couldn't with felony convictions of that nature. And now, what country in their right mind would share their secrets with a convicted felon?
But there are also some companies, some countries that will not allow him in the border.
Yes,
there have to be a special exception,
right?
And he might very well get that. Let's be fair,
because he's the president.
Yeah, because he's the president. Right. But you know, I can think of Canada is one of them. Right. Great Britain is another.
Yes.
That come to mind immediately.
Right.
That they'll have to go through some kind of process to allow him in the country because he's a convicted felon.
Exactly.
And oh, by the way, he voted.
Right.
You know. And oh, by the way, his win, in my opinion, is constitutionally invalid because he's an oath-breaking insurrectionist.
I agree.
Right.
I mean, I just don't see how this man is allowed to run.
That's because the Republican Party and the people that are in power, even if he had lost the popular vote, okay, even if he had lost the popular vote, I believe they had it already planned somehow through Congress that they were going to get.
I agree to that, but I want to look at the term populist vote because I think that's a misnomer. And this is the reason why. America population is about 356 million people. 356 million people did not vote.
Yes.
So he won the majority of the people who voted.
Yes.
Not the populist vote.
Yeah.
And so the same thing you can use the same argument for Biden, anyone else, because everybody in America does not.
And I'll also mention this. I don't know, again, like if you guys ever watch late night TV, Jimmy Kimmel. Really, the day after the election, you know that people would say, "Oh yeah, I haven't voted yet." Like a lot of people did not even know that the election was the day before. It's just sad.
Well, it is sad, but the reality is that they will pay for it now, right? Is that, you know, people, these elections have consequences, right?
Yeah.
And people think that, oh, I'm in a state where I'm safe or whatever, it doesn't apply to me, or they're only going after those people, right? You know, dictators, fascists, they don't have anyone that they like more than themselves. When you become disloyal to them, you become one of those people.
Well, see, you know, I think we mentioned a piece here, Larry, and just forgive my inquisitive mind because this is how I operate. I saw a correlation between education and voting. Let me just explain to this. When I looked at the map, I noticed that the most educated, the better educated states rejected him on both sides of the coast, and in the middle, where the least educated population received him, embraced him,
because they believed the lies.
And so that's just the way I'm going. So when you tear down a democracy, the kleptocracy or the autocracy that you put in place, in our case, and this immediately going to be a kleptocracy because that government is run by thieves, and he's definitely fitting that area. Mm-hmm. What tends to happen is that the new government looks a lot like the old, but in actuality, the workings are running differently. And that's where people. But
you've said it many times on this broadcast, Dr. Bradley. Yeah. I think it was Ben Franklin that says.
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin said it. He said to a citizen after the first convention, a citizen said, "Do we have a democracy?" He said, "We have a representative democracy. Now we have to keep it." And because of that, there were certain guardrails put in place. And I do think democracy is going to fight for its survival. And what I mean by that is that you're going to see immediate competition between Trump and his drive towards autocracy or kleptocracy and the rule of law going at it. Because all the other safeguards, guardrails have failed, including the people.
Right.
Well, the people and the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good point you bring up, Rose, because I can guarantee you within a year you will see Justice Thomas, and if not Justice Thomas and Alito stepping down so that Trump can put some younger people in there who are under the same mindset. Mm-hmm. So because Trump, at best, unless he can somehow maneuver and like he wants to do, is get rid of the Constitution, will be the president for the next 4 years, as if he lives that long, right? Between his health and Iran coming after him, the folks wanted. There was a recent article where they wanted to assassinate him. I say that because.
Which I don't. I think that should be something that I don't wish to death.
No, exactly. No, that's not we're advocating.
I don't like his policy, but I'm not advocating for Trump.
No, he advocates things.
No, well, he's the one. He brings it about himself.
Right.
So.
But I say that in the context that the Supreme Court will be there when he puts these two younger people in there for the next 40 years.
For now,
that impact.
At least, yes.
And so they're the ones who got rid of Roe. Politicians that are elected don't have as much power as the Supreme Court members that are appointed.
Right, but I think what's also happening with that, Larry, is that Donald Trump and his cronies did a very good job in minimizing, mitigating the impact of Roe on the political outcome of this election. What he did was he actually cast it down to the states. He said it's the states that are handling it. So most people were able to split their vote. They were able to vote for him, but reject anything around Roe, or vote for, including Roe on their constitutional ballot. So what happens here, and I think people need to understand this, although it's in your constitutional state, in your state's constitution, but the moment that the national government lower a ban on abortion, we say 12 weeks, a national ban, that doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can be in the Massachusetts Constitution, but the Massachusetts Constitution would not matter. That would not matter.
Even in some cases, medication under the Emoluments Clause, right, where you cannot transport drugs that contribute to abortion across state lines. So people don't understand this tsunami that's coming, right? But I think also we have to look into this as well. Is race played a huge part in this, and sexism, right, and gender, right?
Yes,
because there was this huge backlash after President Obama, and it was almost this never again mentality of having a black person there, particularly a black woman.
Yes.
Hey, this is Pastor Bruce Wall of Global Ministries Christian Church, Boston Praise Radio and TV, and 102.9 FM radio. On Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m., we are hosting an estate planning seminar at the Global Ministries Christian Church with Curtis and Daisy Chambers. That's right. Right after the church service, we will host this needed seminar. In 2025, our churches need to do more than just have services on Sunday. What will you do if you have a death in the family? Suppose a family member had to be placed in a nursing home. Do you have a health proxy? Are you ready for the unexpected? We will discuss this and more on Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. That's Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. It's time for us to protect ourselves, our families, and friends. Join us on Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. at the Global Ministries Christian Church, 670 Washington Street, Dorchester, Mass. Zip code 02124. That's Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. at the Global Ministries Christian Church, 670 Washington Street, Dorchester, Mass. Zip code 02124. Looking forward to seeing you there.
In the most powerful seat in the world.
Yes.
And this
Proximity.
Yeah.
It,
It might be that.
it just
It might be that.
undermines everything going on. And if people think that the economy is going to improve under Donald Trump, just look at his track record, folks. He has been
How many
in
bankruptcies?
At least 5 or 6.
Well, there was a
And how many
time-
unions has he busted?
How many people have he stiffed?
Yes.
Paid?
Larry, you're gonna probably remember this. I'm gonna go back to the 1950s.
He's politely calling me old.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the 50, 58, 59, 60.
I wasn't born, but good.
Okay, well, I was born in 56. So I remember in 1959, 1960, when we were living in Augusta, there was no thing as central heat. I'm going someplace with this. Okay. All right. We had to gather in a room where we had a stove. We had to put wood in the stove, and the fire was burning, and the stove would get real nice and hot. And then on the other side of that room was the kitchen, and they had this pot-belly stove where my mother used to cook with the white face oven and warmers, and you had to put wood in it and to build up the fire so the stove would get hot. It was all cast iron, and so. When after the food was done, my mother would turn the stove off, kill the fire that we used to call it, and my dad used to say to my brother and I, "Don't touch the stove." You know where I'm going here? It is hot. And I was like, man, I'm saying to my brother, this stove is not hot. Come on, it's not red. Yeah. And I put my hand on it, and oh my God, it was my father said, I blistered up immediately. My father said, I told you not to touch the stove. I take that in my mind, I'm saying, America has touched the stove.
Yes.
They have given this guy, this fool, I'm going to put it out there, the rain are running this nation, all right? And now you will see exactly how ineffective his policies are. You will see how damaging his decisions are for our economy. You thought you were paying high prices? Yeah. You waiting for give it 6 months.
Right.
When he start putting no tariffs in, you'll be paying $10 for a tube of toothpaste, brother.
But the reason why the economy was in the shape that it was in is because of his mismanagement of COVID. Right? And that businesses were allowed to then put these prices in place that are still in effect in a lot of cases because of the supply and demand. And even when the supply came back, they said, oh, these people, we can still stick them up and make them pay these higher prices for things that normally would not cost. So nothing's gone down. The quantity has gone down, but the price to pay for these things have gone up.
Just remember, you guys, again, as part of the revolution or part of the way to actually stand up against this is because it's to get off the government to get off the grid, as they say, and find ways to be independent where you're not dependent on going shopping or everything you need is through the supermarket. So learn how to do natural medicine, learn how to make natural soaps, just kind of learn how to use what the resources that you have.
Every summer, to your point, every summer because my mom did it, right? We put a garden in the backyard, right? It saves some, right? It's we don't live in a climate where we can grow outside, unfortunately, here, right? But over the summer, I harvest most of my vegetables from my backyard, right? And that's a savings, right? And it's also I know what's in it because I put it there, right? So you're right. We become like when I hear people talking, and a lot of folks are joyous that they think that there are stimulus checks coming again because Donald Trump is in office, that somehow that is going to
they're in for a surprise.
Right. Because they were getting these checks because they weren't those checks were only because of the COVID.
Yes.
Right? We had a disaster disaster that was affecting the economy worldwide, and people weren't able to go out and work. So the only way you're going to get another stimulus check is to have another global pandemic.
Yes, you're not getting that check again. And again, and people didn't realize how selfish he was. He wanted to the point where it's like, hey, I'm going to hold all these checks until my name gets on them.
Right.
Like he could have given out the checks, I think 6 weeks beforehand,
Exactly.
but he wanted to wait until the stamp Donald Trump was ready to go to print those checks out.
You see, Larry and Rose, those are good issues. Don't get me wrong, and they justify, and they kind of give me an understanding why people went the way that they went. But what I think a much more, damaging problem here, and very surreptitious issue, is the impact of America's loss on the geopolitical stage.
I totally agree.
That is, I think America with this guy.
We were the beacon of hope.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and he just put out that light.
Yeah, I mean, this mega movement, America First movement, we have had over 70 years of stability in the world because of NATO. Seriously, because whenever the strong men around the world looked at a territory, they had to consider how NATO would respond to it, because they had that huge army. Now you have a situation where America pulls out, NATO become significantly reduced in power. All right, and what tends to happen is one may argue, well, that's their war. No, not in today's world. The world is a community, because it's easy.
They don't recognize borders.
I'm telling you. So that's the issue. It's like we have our internal issue, but it's bigger. It's bigger, because what you're going to see is that you're going to see America become known as unreliable, and China become known as reliable. And so what you're going to see is a shift. So the dollar that you see today will not be the dollar or tomorrow, because the dollar will not be the main currency in the world anymore. It'll be the yen.
And to your point, history has taught us, and by the way, happy Veterans Day to you and all the veterans.
Yes.
Veterans Day weekend, right? And it's veterans, someone who he says are
suckers and losers
for defending this country. So why would I want to sign up to defend this country, and particularly understand the history? But to your point, where you just laid out so articulately, is that history has taught us that, right? When Hitler took over, it was all of the Allies coming together, right? It wasn't just the countries that he had taken over in that war. It was the United States, it was England, it was France, it was all of these countries that stormed Normandy, right? That made it overwhelming to that one person. Like you said, America has been that glue, has been looked to as the leader, as the adult in the room sometimes, right? When things were not stable around the world. Who now?
Well, I think it's going to be China, and this is the thing.
But China isn't looking for stability.
I know, that's my point. My point. China is looking to remove America from being the global.
Yes.
It actually looking to erase America's footprint, and so the issue here is that in the past, when we had strong men come up, like a Nixon, I said to myself, but you have guardrails, and the guardrail is the party. The Republican Party is owned by Trump. It should be the Trumpian party.
The cult party.
It is not the Republican Party it's not your daddy's Republican Party. And so you're going to see them actually drive up the budget, drive up the deficit.
He did that in the first $8 trillion he added to the budget.
It's going to get worse.
Right? And his vice president, who described him correctly when he was a senator, when he first said Donald Trump was the modern day Hitler, it's now his vice president. Someone who will bend the knee, who will lie. I mean, people want to be lied to instead of being told the truth. That's what you get right now.
But you know what, Larry? I think the thing that might be the saving it's going to be interesting to see how well democracy defends itself. And what I mean by that is that the way that the system is structured. Look at who controls each chamber of the House. So the House of Representatives consists of two chambers: the People's Chamber, the legislatures, and then the Senate. All right, the representatives and then the Senate. Look at who's controlling it. I think the Republicans going to control both sides, but look at the amount of seats they have. Look at the width of the control. It's going to be very, very thin. And so what builds in that is that means there are some Republicans who are occupying traditionally Democrat seats. And so when that happens, they got to be very sensitive to those laws that's going to upset their voting population, and that may be the saving grace.
I'm going to push back and disagree a little bit because, and here's why. And you can check if you think. I would have thought that would have been the case with Donald Trump and people saying, and they would have dismissed that. So if they didn't dismiss it at the top, I don't see them dismissing it.
Well, brother, I'm trying to hold on to something. I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to grab something.
Right, and I hear your optimism, but I'm saying if
that's optimism.
Right. If they didn't pay a price, right, and now their dear leader is now spouting this, and they have to go along to get along with him because they're saying, hey, wait a minute, I will pay more of a price for not being in bed with him than I will for disobeying the people who put me in office.
Well, I think, the Democrats made some very serious issues here, some very serious mistakes. But I do think that scenario where people who are sitting in traditional Democratic seats in that representative House of Representatives will be very sensitive about laws that would be too aggressive because they got to go back. All right, and they got to actually explain why, because you got to think about this. At that time, the people who put them there were going to be concerned about what this guy who's running the office.
Right, but we thought that would be with abortion, right, and also IVF, right, and they denied that from passing, right, to have that. So, and they didn't pay a price for it.
Yeah, they hit it. They hit it. They basically said, well, we didn't destroy it. We gave it to the states. So your state has it. But people are not understanding that once a ban is placed by the federal government, it's a ban on all states.
Right. Exactly. But this also goes back to why the Civil War was fight, so that people have rights regardless, certain rights, no matter what state you live in, right? And now we're saying that we're back to Civil War times.
Yeah. But again, on certain rules, I would say.
For certain people.
Exactly. It's not uniform.
If you have the money there. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO.
And I really blame the American educational system for this. The idea that you actually got rid of civics, you got rid of home ec.
He wants to ban the education.
Yeah, exactly, because he wants to be people even dumber to do his bidding with no resistance whatsoever.
Exactly, that's what.
Because people calling him out on the truth. No,
right, the truth hurts.
The truth does hurt.
Good morning, caller. Welcome to the Round Table.
Oh, brothers, how are we today?
We're live. Yeah, we're live.
Well, I have to admit the brother did call it. Because I thought it would be but Siddiqui called it. Trump was going to win this. Yeah. How you doing, Siddiqui?
Not bad. Well, I hear all the despair as y'all.
Whoa, Siddiqui. Let me say, there is no despair at this table.
No.
There is no despair at this table.
All I'm saying is, I see all these headlines about how black people are devastated and all this despair and everything, and I'm saying to myself, brother's correct. I had predicted it, but I'm glad he won, and the reason why I'm glad is because of the fact that we as black people, we always sitting back waiting for somebody to do something for us. Now, the real question is, what are we going to do for ourselves? And never mind. Oh, well, and I call her Caramel. She ain't a black woman. We're thinking that she going to do something for us, just like biding our time, waiting on Joe Biden to do something for us. What black people are faced with now is about what are we going to do for ourselves with our $1.5 trillion GNP. We have no other alternative but each other.
Okay, Siddiqui.
So stop. Now, I'm not talking to y'all right now.
No, I know, but Siddiqui.
Stop crying and get to work.
Siddiqui. Let's have a conversation here where we can interact with what you're saying. And I'm not in disagreement with what you're saying, right? I'm saying, what does that look like going forward? I totally agree with what you just said.
And all I will say is this: historically, every time we've tried to do something, this country has turned around and shut it down.
But also, we have looked for permission from folks who, right, and we've looked for acceptance. And I've said that to many times, right? Is that Siddiqui, and I think he'll agree, we're under the same mindset, I think, at this table.
They call the Black Panthers a terrorist group. They started a breakfast program, reading program, after school program, because they wanted to protect their community. They call them terrorists.
Right,
That's the thing.
But people are saying, "Oh, I can't believe this is America." This has always been
America. Yes.
Right? It's just now because they used to try to hide the ball. Now, I told them the quiet part is being said out loud. So I said in some ways, too, I think this is the end. If democracy will hold, which I don't believe it will, this will be the end of the Republican Party. Because after 4 years of this, Siggy's right. There will be a reckoning for folks. Because as we were talking earlier, Sadiq, and I don't think people were talking about stimulus checks. Once again, depending on the government. Oh yeah. Depending on the government to take care of them. Depending on the government to educate. And you have he's talking about putting someone like RFK
Wait a second.
in charge of health.
They're talking about stimulus checks. So who? And then they're saying that the immigrants are coming here to be freeloaders.
No, that's what I'm saying. So Siddiqui,
using logic, brother.
Right. How do we start? Because I still think people are not heeding to what has really taken place here, like you have, like most of us who are of some common sense, see what America has been for the longest time, and we've been sounding the alarm. I don't think there's enough people who have hit rock bottom yet, and I'm not sure what they think rock bottom looks like.
Well, the bottom line is that we have to do what all other groups do. Circle the wagons and build our own nation within a nation.
Right, but we're so fragmented, Siddiqui. How do we do that?
But see, what I'm saying is that with Trump being in there, the fragmentation is going to have to change because of the fact that we won't have anything but each other. And I'm saying the bottom line is that we're the only group out here that says, oh, we can't do anything without allies. Well, everybody else does whatever they know. Like Vietnam, this country, I got drafted during that time. This country got whipped by Vietnam. But you go down to Dorchester, there's a certain section there where the Vietnamese, they dominate. Chinatown, you go down to the North End. So the bottom line is that we got to make a determination. This is what we're going to do for us. We got the brain power, we got the resources, but we continually look to someone else for our salvation. So, like I said, when people say, well, a lot of our problems are the vestiges of slavery, and I said, don't even go there. We understand that had an effect, but when our ancestors came out of slavery, they started with nothing. We built the family infrastructure. We had our own schools, hospitals, economic development. So let's stop making excuses for ourselves. But I saw black people crying because Trump won. And I'm saying, this is ridiculous.
We saw white people crying too.
Well, no, but also, I guess history has taught us quite a bit if you paid attention to history, right? That, like I said, this is the America that has always been here, right? And it has always disappointed black people. And I said to folks, I said, it's interesting that there was no immigration policy when they could enslave people and bring them here, bring as many as they could get on the ship, and whatever they couldn't, they tossed over like trash, right? And now all of a sudden, that there's a cost here. You can't bring people here and work them for free. Immigration is a huge problem here in this country, right? And abortion, the population of non-whites in this country has become alarming, right? Because the country is becoming more of people of color in this country, that we now have to slow that down. We now have to. But
see, America's got a special brand of racism because again, everything that they did.
What's special about it?
okay. But I would just say that they everything that they're saying about the immigrants that they're saying now, they said about the immigrants when they were the Italians, when they were the Irish.
Right.
But yet those people were able to integrate and become part of mainstream society, or the quote unquote acceptable way. But us Americans who've been here since the time of slavery, no matter what, will not be accepted, and they refuse to say that we are people. Okay?
Right. I mean, truth be told, Siddiqui, I agree with your point. There is that's why I don't register as a Democrat or a Republican. I register as an independent.
Hey, this is Pastor Bruce Wall of Global Ministries Christian Church, Boston Praise Radio and TV, and 102.9 FM radio. On Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m., we are hosting an estate planning seminar at the Global Ministries Christian Church with Curtis and Daisy Chambers. That's right. Right after the church service, we will host this needed seminar. in 2025, our churches need to do more than just have services on Sunday. What will you do if you have a death in the family? Suppose a family member had to be placed in a nursing home. Do you have a health proxy? Are you ready for the unexpected? We will discuss this and more on Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. That's Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. It's time for us to protect ourselves, our families, and friends. Join us on Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. at the Global Ministries Christian Church, 670 Washington Street, Dorchester, Mass., zip code 02124. That's Sunday morning, January 5th, 12th, and 19th at 10:30 a.m. at the Global Ministries Christian Church, 670 Washington Street, Dorchester, Mass., zip code 02124. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Is that we become so reliant on the government for our issues, and a lot of times the government is the problem, not the solution.
Yes.
So again, I mean, I don't really see, and I know it's been only a few days since this taken place, but I really don't see people galvanizing and coming together and trying to build that coalition that you speak of, Siddiqui. How do we get started with that? Because
it's already started with circumstances. Look here, we've got a white man in that office who's saying, I don't like black people. I'm not going to do nothing for black people. So what you going to do? So the only alternatives that we have is to turn to each other. So you're going to see that change coming because of the circumstances that exist at the present time.
I hope you're
right.
So,
this whole thing about integration, because I think that psychologically, deep down inside, black people still have this desire for white people to love black people. And Donald Trump and this vote made it very clear to folks that white folks don't care about black people at all. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And and particularly for our young people, so they can be able to embrace what the circumstance is right now and moving forward.
Yeah.
So, I'll just say essentially that when it comes to our young people, there's a lot that they need to do to improve, but I think that our young people here and in the continent of Africa, I think that there's something brewing over there that they're saying, we ain't going to put up with this. We're going to step up. I hope to see it in my lifetime in terms of whatever I got left, but the circumstances, and let me just say this, white people are freaking out because of the fact that they're psychologically, they're panicking because of the fact of what you all were talking about. They're saying by 2050 that they will be in the quote-unquote minority, and that in a certain amount of time, in terms of centuries, they won't exist at all. So they're freaking out.
Yeah. So
but they're showing who they really are, and I appreciate that, because that means black people are going to have to make a determination as to what we're going to have to do.
Right.
So I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying stop the crying and the despair and all that.
Well,
and stand up and let's do what we did before integration, alleged integration.
So I want to pivot a second, Siddiqui, because when you talk about improvements, speaking of improvements, I want to commend you. I was speaking to Brother Jamal, and he was saying that he gave you a shout out. He said that he has seen considerable improvements in Nubian Square, down in that area there, that things have gotten considerably better. He said still work to do as always, but he said even he has to acknowledge the improvements that have taken place down there. So kudos to all who have made it. I haven't been down there in a while because I used to go down there frequently when it work related, but I don't.
You do know that white people are living down there now, right?
I haven't been down there in a while.
I was like, oh my God, dude coming out the building with his bicycle.
With the high riser.
Yeah. I was like, and again, like it was like a $1,000 bicycle. I was like, man.
Election day was actually and I sent to all you all, was the 5th anniversary of the historic vote to change the name from Dudley Square to Nubian Square. And we got to be careful when it comes to the whole thing.
It's ironic
of what you're saying, justification. But the bottom line is that there's something happening in the square in terms of the spirit. There's a glow among folks when they don't say down Dudley. They say Nubian Square. You got the Bay State banner just moved to John Elliott Square. That's within the borders. One United Bank and John Elliott Square. They're going to build their headquarters there where the former foreign car repair shop is.
Yeah.
Beckman's down there.
Right. So
Jalen Brown of the Celtics saying he sees Boston and New York potentially being the symbols of renewed Black Wall Street. So we got to be thinking along the lines of progress. You know, you've got the new school being built there. You know, the former Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology, and that's called Franklin Cummins. We won't take that Franklin name down because he was a slave owner.
Right.
But you've got, you know, there's a lot going on down there right now.
So
we got to be careful about gentrification, but folks are thinking more independently about what we got to do for ourselves.
Okay, Siddiqui, so 2 points. One is ironic because on last week's broadcast, I was just happened to look over my shoulder and I saw it said vote Nubian Square November 5th, 2019, right? So your point is well taken, and it's still hanging up here on the wall here, and above that is welcome to Nubian Square. But to Rhodes' point, and like I said, I'm not saying that folks should not be welcome in that community. I think it's good when you see, but my concern is that Nubian Square will go the way of the South End, Beacon Hill, where we were, and as the improvements started to take place in those neighborhoods, their improvement was our movement out, right? Improvement means movement. So I hear what you're saying, and I applaud, like I said, the work that's been done down there and continue to be done. But I'm also, like Rhodes, I was at MAMLEO the other day, and I was standing outside waiting for someone to come and open the door. And I noticed a lot of Caucasians walking by at the bus stop, and I'm not saying they're not welcome, they shouldn't be there. But it showed me their
migration,
right, is that we know historically that when we've seen that population move in, we've seen the price of the average price of a home in Boston is $1 million now. The property taxes
go up,
are going up next month. And the mayor tried to make it seem like she was giving people a gift when she said initially they wanted a 28% increase, and then it was 14% on homeowners, and then she acted like she was giving them a thing. We're going to do 8% or something of that nature. Right?
Exactly, it's a political ploy. They always say we're going for 25, and they argue, and by the time you end up, they still only wanted that 8%, but they make it seem like, ooh, you only got 8%. Remember we said 25. Remember we said 30%, and everybody was like, whew.
So Siddiqui, what is being put in place to stabilize people? Because I'll give you a perfect example. You know, right across from the bowling building there's a new I think it's probably a 4-story that used to be, it was built near where the laundromat was. They're building something else, or if that was built
they put more condos.
Okay, now that population in that building, that's probably where that guy was coming out with the bicycle or close.
No, actually a gray building, a new high rise is actually behind. Do you know where the parking lot is? Where across from bowling building?
Yeah.
Okay, there. Like there's a gray high rise there. It's a high tech building because literally he was taking his bicycle and the garage. He had a remote and the garage door was opening for him.
It's condos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Siddiqui, stand by for a second. We'll grab this other caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Yes, good morning. This is T. Michael Thomas from the People's Academy.
I thought you said from the People's Republic.
It might as well.
We're going to be a sovereign nation within the building.
Might as well.
They've already infiltrated us.
Now, I wanted to throw something in there. Since it's such a great fun, I'm always listening, but not always able to call in. But I wanted to say this. Here is an opportunity for us to have the first black trade school that will help individuals get into the middle class in a $1 billion industry that is on tap for people of color, for black folk, especially folks returning home, that Benjamin Franklin Institute will not take even after they're 25, 35, or 45 years old. And that's real.
No, it is real.
The People's Academy is designed specifically to address the recidivism, especially for folks coming home with no opportunity, housing, etc. Here is a perfect opportunity. We're in a blue state, but not one elected official are promoting or supporting an entity like that is so needed. How do you respond to that, Brother Siddiqui?
Well, see,
and I'm not attacking you, brother.
No, but it goes
to the on the same side.
Right. No, it goes to the point of what that's what I'm saying is that, we're seeing a displacement, right? Improvement means movement on our part, right? And as Siddiqui was saying, this is what I'm saying. If people weren't supporting it then, I don't see the sense of urgency that they see now to stabilize this situation by supporting it now. And I'm not saying they shouldn't, because I support the People's Academy. But what I'm saying is I don't think we're there yet where we see the sense of urgency of where we really are today, where we've always been, but we've kind of had blinders on, thinking that it was something else. But I'll let Siddiqui answer your question, and we'll grab this call.
Yeah, well, let me just say this, that, see, Michael's correct. We clearly are in support of that school happening. But see, there's a different move now. Well, I think that there's going to be a shift, even in terms of supporting T. Michael down the line. Because when I hear this talk about, when you see white people in the neighborhood, there was a time when black people fell for the trap of alleged integration and would see white people in the neighborhood and say, oh yeah, that means things must be getting better because we got white people in the neighborhood. No, there's a different mood out here now when folks see white people in the neighborhood based on the experience that we've had, like you said, the South End, Beacon Hill, what have you. So at this point here now, there's a certain amount of acknowledgement on the part of black people about, you know what, we got to do what we got to do to be able to remain where we are and to have what we are and do what we got to do for ourselves versus saying that, well, integration's the answer. Integration was a sham. We gave up a lot that we should not have. And so, like I said before, I believe that, T. Michael's been very patient, but I believe there's going to be a shift in terms of, and even elected officials understanding the fact that there's a sentiment out in the community. Because let me just say this, that Siddiqui Cambon, I'm a black nationalist, and I know that folks there, like my friend there, I call him Brother Fleming, that the deputy, that, that the bottom line is that it wasn't too long ago, if you said you were a black nationalist, people say, ooh, particularly black people, ooh, he's a black nationalist. But there's a different mood out there, even in terms of how I'm received as a quote-unquote black nationalist now, because of the fact that psychologically, folks probably don't even realize the fact that they're moving in that direction based on the circumstances out there. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that it's a good thing that Trump is the president, because of the clear message that this country is sending right now. Black people, we don't have no use for you, and what you going to do? So that's where we are.
Stiggy, stand by. I want to bring Dan Walker in from Sound Travels here to hear what he has to say, because I'm sure you probably may want to respond. T. Michael, hold on, please. Dan, good morning. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning. How is everybody doing this morning?
We're quite well, thank you.
It's a great day in America. Good to be alive.
Yes, it is.
And I'm just hoping that now the country can come together. I'm hoping that there's been some great lessons learned in this election, in this process.
I would not want to talk when Trump was there.
Right. No, what lessons are those, Dan, that you're talking about in this unity that now you're touting that you weren't touting prior to?
Well, I'm hoping that there is unity. I'm hoping that people can finally move on. I've been dealing with 4 years of how could you? I've been called everything but a friend of man and a child of God, based on my beliefs and my structures, and now apparently I'm not alone.
That doesn't make it right. So, and a broken clock is right twice a day. So I understand you, and you have every right to be in whatever mood you are, and juvenile, and people have a right to feel the way that they do. I don't think this is a great thing for this country, but I don't think it's no different than this country has been. I think it's just an awakening, and I think it highlighted there's really not been much movement for black people in this country, and that's a reality that I deal with. So I'm not mistaken by what has been taking place in this country, and it doesn't shock me that someone of Donald Trump's magnitude could be elected. We've had worse in this country that have treated black people, and Donald Trump is just the modern day version of that today. So
how could you actually say that when everybody wants to ignore history? And I was not allowed to get this point out a little while ago, but everybody wants to ignore history. Woodrow Wilson is the president that not only instituted Jim Crow, but it made it a national policy that took almost 50 years to reduce.
Dan, what you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm not talking about what party they belong to. I'm talking about this country and people in general. See, you think it has to do with what letter is beside their name, a Democrat or Republican.
Actually, I don't think that at all.
Well, that's what you're saying, because you're talking about you're talking about Woodrow Wilson and what he did. I'm talking about America in general, right? There's really been no president that has really dealt with our issues in this country.
Exactly. And if you notice the history, any president that has done an inkling of trying to help the black race ended up getting executed.
Hold on, let me say this, because I want to say this. Give me the room.
Yeah.
I am angry that this man will call our show after many times after what Trump did. He would say, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about it. Now he's gloating. I'm going to call it what it is. All right? So gloat, brother, because you're going to suffer this as well. All right? For all our black brothers. No. This is our show. You let me talk. You let me talk. All right? Do not interrupt me. This is not the time to do it, because I have no patience for it. You're going to pay for it as well, brother. All right? This man does not care about you. Siddiqui is right on target. We have a huge apple here, and that is called our money. You know, we have to use our money to better us, not look for anyone to do it for us. All right? And so to call this show and gloat about this man winning, you are losing the point. You are missing the target. Now you have the stage.
They're making some background noise.
Go ahead.
Let me explain. For the last 4 years, I did not talk about politics, because every time I opened my mouth to say anything, the station was in danger of being censored or being shut down or whatever. My political ideas, my concepts on COVID, all of that stuff was putting Boston Praise Radio in jeopardy from all the different forces that did not want.
I'm not understanding it, Dan. We talk about very similar things here, right? It's when people are saying things that are not true, right? Yeah, because if it's not true and it's causing harm to people, that saying that, you know, that things that have been proven safe, i.e. vaccines, and now he wants someone like RFK to be heading up health issues, that's dangerous. So when you're lying, like as Donald Trump is a habitual liar, yeah, that's dangerous, and there are consequences. You know, your children, if they lie, there are consequences for that. If you lie to your employer, there are consequences for that. So now we have the leader of the United States,
the liar in chief,
a convicted felon, found liable for sexually abusing women. As a leader, that's what folks chose, and they have every right to choose that.
Yes,
but we can't ignore that. We can't say, "Oh, it's okay," because the vast majority of people in this country see that fit.
And let us understand that the Constitution was written for rich white male owners,
and by white males.
So that's what they're protecting. That's the interest that they're protecting. They're not protecting us.
Right.
They're not protecting the people. They're protecting themselves. They're circling the wagons because they realize, like, again, their population is decreasing, and they see, by 2050 we're going to be the minority. We cannot let the rule of democracy actually control, because they basically said, as Dr. Bradley stated, they would rather hold on to supremacy than democracy.
So Siddiqui, I want to get your take on, and as well as T. Michael, but Siddiqui, I'll start with you. I want to get your take on what Dan has said.
Well, actually, I'm trying to get a sense of what his position is. I mean, the bottom line is that...
let me tell you what his position is. Let me tell you basically what his position is. He won, and like I said, he called the gloat, and I think he thought that somehow we were going to be in despair here, which I am not, because I don't depend on the government for my needs, right? I take him.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge. If your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies, you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'? You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst, and the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.
I always dream